May 30th, 2025. A cargo ship off the west coast of Africa sounds the alarm. 7 armed men have boarded the vessel in the late afternoon. By the time Nigerian naval assets respond, they've left and 2 crew members remain unaccounted for. Left behind is a pool of blood. Off Singapore, nearing 6 PM on the 26th, 6 men armed with guns and knives are spotted on the deck of a bulk carrier. The alarm blares out and the men escape, but a crewman is attacked and injured in the process. So reads line after line of the International Maritime Organization's report on piracy for May of this year. 26 individual incidents of attempted robbery, attacks by armed intruders, and kidnapping. That is a lot of incidents, an almost shocking amount, and it happens on a monthly basis. It's thought that piracy could account for perhaps as much as $12 billion a year in lost revenue, but the toll on human lives and well-being is significant too. In Somalia, nearly 80 hostages still remain captive, while the Gulf of Guinea was host to more than 120 kidnappings in 2019 alone. Most alarmingly of all, piracy and attacks on shipping are on the rise, with dozens of vessels targeted every month. So naturally, the question is, what can ships and their crews actually do to protect themselves from this awful threat? Piracy is, of course, nothing new. In fact, the word alone probably invokes images of scraggly ruffians chasing down lumbering merchant ships under sail. Names like Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, William Kidd, Henry Morgan, they're all etched into public consciousness even today, when the so-called golden age of piracy ended all the way back in the 1730s. The troubling truth, though, is that piracy has entered a new golden age, and the world's container ships, cruise ships, and tankers are the targets. Pirates come from a bewildering array of countries and backgrounds, but typically they're attracted to a life of sea crime by reasons of desperation, and even, in the case of Somalia, a kind of nationalism. So that country saw its rich fishing spots being targeted illegally by foreign trawlers. The coastal communities began to raise a kind of people's coast guard to intercept these ships and hold them for ransom. This established a pretty lucrative business model, and the practice stuck around once they began attacking ships other than the fishing trawlers. See, the country has a GDP of just under 2% that of the US state of New Jersey, even though it has about double the population size. It's a desperate situation for many, and naturally, a life of crime is the inevitable result. This kind of piracy is motivated by dollars, but there's another kind of modern piracy that verges more on terrorism and political extremism. In 1985, it happened to a beloved cruise ship and ocean liner. The Achille Lauro had once been the Dutch vessel Willem Royce before she was rebuilt and renamed for Flotta Lauro Lines, working the Italy to Australia migrant route. By the 80s, she was a cruise ship when, off the coast of Egypt, 4 of her passengers revealed themselves to be members of a terror group. They seized control of the ship, holding 97 passengers hostage, and 1 was even murdered in the ordeal. Then, in 2008, a French sail cruise ship, Le Pennon, was boarded by Somali pirates who held the passengers and crew hostage until they received a £2 million ransom. Pirates' weapons of choice today, according to IMO reports, seem to be knives, guns, and the occasional heavy object like pipes or wrenches. Their vehicles, small, simple, and fast skiff boats. This, of course, limits them to attacks only near the coast, but fortunately for them, the world's big trade routes run through many narrow channels, the gulfs or the straits, which are perfectly suited for exactly these kinds of rapid attacks, and it usually goes something like this. The cargo ship, or tanker, lumbers up the channel doing its cruising speed about 13 to 70 knots, whatever's best for the ship's design. This really isn't lightning quick. The pirates will chase their prey down with their small skiffs and use grappling hooks to haul themselves on board. You'd think that getting up the vast steel hull of a tanker or a cargo ship undetected would be a difficult, if not impossible task, but the challenge facing these ships is that their crews are simply too small and nearly entirely preoccupied with their job actually running the ship. The biggest merchant vessels might be longer than a few city blocks and weigh more than a skyscraper, but they're crewed by only 20 to 30 people, with many of them off-duty resting throughout the day when they're off shift. The general goal for the most common kind of piracy, financial piracy, is to either board, disable, and rob the vessel, or hold it and its crew for ransom. Cargo ships obviously carry extremely valuable goods, from cars to household electronics and everything in between. But the ships themselves are actually comprised of hundreds of thousands of valuable parts, many of them made of equally valuable materials. Copper wiring, for example, can fetch a pretty good price, but so too can engineering parts. Off Vietnam in May this year, a container ship was boarded by two men who stripped it of hydrants, fire hoses, and nozzles before escaping. Another bulk carrier had its engine spare parts stolen. In fact, engine spares seem to be the most commonly stolen items from ships like this because they're precision made and they're expensive to source. One vessel had no less than 300 litres of paint stolen, which really is no mean feat. So what can even be done about this? You have a difficult scenario on your hands. Thinly stretched teams maintaining huge ships. They just can't be expected to hold their own against nimble boats loaded with pirates, armed with pipes, knives, and Kalashnikov rifles. The most obvious answer is to make sure ships go to sea with armed guards. It's done, occasionally, and security firms make a good buck, supplying armed teams to provide 24/7 watch. These trained guards come equipped, of course, with automatic rifles. They're the most aggressive kind of responsive deterrent. There are some pretty wild videos out there showing what happens when a small skiff boat comes face to face with sustained automatic fire from these guys. In one, an RPG rocket on board one of the boats goes up in a cataclysmic boom. But there are problems with this arrangement too. Yes, security teams are deadly efficient, but they're very expensive. They have to board the ship, they have to remain on watch throughout the day and all the night. Their weapons, their training, their costs, it's a money pit. And having armed squads on most ships just isn't an option. There are thousands and thousands of ships operating in challenging environments. It's impossible to equip all of them with armed guards. The ships and their crews can't carry guns themselves either. Back in the days of sail, some merchant ships did carry cannon, but today that would disqualify them from entry in most big trading ports around the globe. That doesn't mean companies haven't tried to create unique and original means of protection though. They just have to remain non-lethal and get creative. Probably one of the most interesting of these is the LRAD system, the long-range acoustic device. It's essentially a massive speaker that throws a sound so loud and devastatingly impactful that it can stop an assailant right in their tracks. One LRAD system can apparently blast the tone up to 3 kilometers or nearly 10,000 feet. A producer of the technology explains that, quote, "Because much of human hearing is processed from the vibration of the small bones in your face and jaw, earplugs or headphones do little to reduce LRAD's effects." In fact, in an almost James Bond-like technological arms race, there have been attempts to make massive lasers to warn and dazzle at range, and huge nets to be shot at approaching boats. But aside from this wacky technology, there are things the ship and its crew can actually do that are quite simple. For example, evasive maneuverres. These are actually quite effective because a big ship, even at 13 or 15 knots, is a difficult thing to board if it's moving around unexpectedly. Just ask any harbour pilot who's had to hop aboard. In 2014, a Fred Olsen cruise ship, Black Watch, was on approach to Somalia as part of a round-the-world cruise when specialist anti-piracy teams came aboard. They set up barbed wire barriers, water cannons capable of blasting a high-pressure jet of water to knock any potential boarders away. Cruise ships are naturally high-value prizes for politically motivated attackers. In fact, earlier this year, the captain of Queen Anne, Cunard's newest cruise ship, warned passengers to shut their curtains and turn out their cabin lights in the area of frequent pirate attacks off the Philippines. Fortunately, most of these ships can rely on their sheer size and the number of people aboard to ward off unexpected boarders. It's a lot harder to get aboard a massive ship when it's loaded with people. In fact, to that end, container ships and tankers have been advised to install dummies around the bridge and the upper works to make it appear as if more crew are present or on watch. Setting up chain link fences around vital areas, like the bridge, is another simple technique. The chain link can detonate a well-aimed RPG before it strikes the bridge itself. Barbed wire and reinforced doors and windows are other simple improvements that can be made, but it still doesn't account for the fact that many of the pirates seem to be only noticed once they're already aboard, at least according to the IMO's monthly reports. In truth, there isn't a whole lot the ships themselves can do. It's what makes them such a juicy target for would-be attackers. The future of vessel defense may lie with drones. They're inexpensive, and unlike human guards, they can stay on watch around the clock until their batteries need to be swapped. AI-powered drones high above would be able to easily detect and identify threats well before they come within range, meaning the target ship could use its most valuable defensive asset, its own speed and momentum. Sudden, unexpected course changes could throw a small attack craft off balance and even swamp or sink it. Now, this kind of detection seen in radar installations as well is called a TBD system, track before detection. It can easily identify small, fast-moving craft as potential threats. With the crew forewarned and actually ready for what's coming, they'd stand a much greater chance of securing their vessel and getting out of harm's way. Really though, the biggest threat faced by pirates today, just as it was in the 18th century, are the world's navies. A combined, systematic defense can reap some pretty impressive benefits. For example, from August 2009 to late 2016, NATO ran Operation Ocean Shield, a combined operation that saw the forces of 15 of their member states, and even more non-members, take part in a crackdown on Somalian piracy. Warships remained on station patrolling from the Arabian Sea to the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Aden. In early 2011, a yacht hijacked by 19 pirates saw the response of an insanely powerful fleet. The carrier USS Enterprise, a guided missile cruiser and 2 destroyers. Now, that would be enough to make the entire Navy and Air Force of a pretty decently sized nation quake, let alone a single boat and not even 20 attackers. A captured chemical tanker was recaptured by Korean commandos, which saw 8 pirates killed. Within 3 years, the rate of annual piracy attacks in the area had fallen from over 230 to just 2. The golden age of piracy ended in the 1730s because Europe's powerful navies began to hunt them down with alarming success. Pressure from combined naval forces simply proved too much. NATO's Ocean Shield showed how effective task forces can be at almost stopping the practice, but the real root cause still should be examined. Piracy survives today because local governments are unable or not willing to seriously solve the issue. So in the meantime, until something serious is done at a local level, ships will have to go to sea equipped with water cannons, barbed wire, and sonic weapons, and simply hope for the best. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friend Mike Brady from Oceanliner Designs. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we get new videos out weekly. If you want to support my work and get really cool perks like behind the scenes and early access, please visit my Patreon in the link in the description below, or sign up as a YouTube member. Come and join the crew. As always, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you again next time.